Hello, this is video 6 for section 1.5 for Math0302 Beginning Algebra. This question is starting out with, what does the negative mean in front of a number? Well, the examples are -3, -10, and -4.5. All that the negative means here is that it's the opposite of the positive number 3, the opposite of the positive number 10, and the opposite of the positive number 4.5. Okay, so that's all that the negative really means here. Okay, so this is opposite of 3, the opposite of 10, and the opposite of 4.5. So that's all that means. What does the minus sign mean when it's between two numbers? 10 minus 6. Well, actually, all this really means is that we have 10 plus the opposite of 6, which is -6. That's really what it means. And if you were to simplify this, 10 plus -6 is 4. Okay. Look at the opposite of -4. That's what this means. The opposite of -4. Now the opposite of -4, because because -4 is on the left hand side, the other side, that's what that means, is on the right hand side, so that makes that +4. So two negatives like this make that to be positive. Now this one right here is just the opposite of 8. And the opposite of 8 is -8. Now down here, this means the opposite of absolute value of -12. Okay, so this means the opposite of the absolute value of -12. But the absolute value of -12 has to be evaluated first, because that's effectively a parentheses. So this means the opposite of whatever the absolute value of -12 is, which is 12. So the opposite of absolute value of -12 is -12. So be careful about this. These two negatives only give you a +4 because there's nothing that you can do with this -4. Down here, you can actually take the absolute value of this -12 before you can use this negative on the outside. It's just the order of operations. That's all this is. Now look at C here. Oops, let me make sure there was nothing down here. Oh, there we go. Better. Let's practice this. So the opposite of the absolute value of -14. Well, because there's an absolute value here, that means that I can evaluate this first. So that makes this the opposite of the absolute value of -14, which makes this opposite of 14. So this is -14. That's the answer here. Now B is the opposite of -3/5. Because there's nothing you can do with the -3/5, that makes this +3/5. Look at C here. C says the opposite of 5y. Again, there's nothing you can do with this 5y, so that just makes this -5y. And D is the opposite of -8. Again, there's nothing you can do with -8, so the opposite of -8 is +8. Okay. Now let's think about this. What is -6 plus 6? Well, they're opposite signs, so we're going to subtract. So that means 6 minus 6. What's 6 minus 6? 0. Again, 14 plus -14. Opposite signs, subtract, so 14 minus 14 is 0. And then 27 plus -27, again, they're opposite signs, so you subtract. 27 minus 27 is 0. Now, I don't have to worry about any signs here because 0 is unsigned. It's neutral. Also, what this is showing is it's showing that property that a plus -a equals 0. Now what we could do is we could draw a number line here. So negative 6 plus 6 means I start at negative 6. I add on 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I ask myself, what number is that? Well, that's 0. So negative 6 plus 6 gives me 0. Down here, the same thing for 14 plus negative 14. Because the 14 is first here, I write the 14 here. And I'm adding on a negative 14, so I'd go to the left 14 units, making that to be 0. Same thing for the 27 plus negative 27. I'd put the 27 here, and then plus negative 27 means I go to the left 27 places, and I'm right back to 0 again. What conclusion can you draw from this? Here's the conclusion that you should draw. When opposites are added, the result is always 0. Okay. So taking all this together, this is what you should arrive at. When opposites are added, the results are always 0. So negative 6 and 6 are opposites, so you add them together, it gives you 0. 14 and negative 14 are opposites, you add them together, that gives you 0. 27 and negative 27 are opposites, when you add them together, that gives you 0.